Hello everybody, welcome to my little wooden cabin in the woods, in my garden. Let's begin. Welcome to the 5-day challenge to grow your intuition. I'm really excited to share something that I'm really passionate about, which is guiding people back to themselves and understanding how to access more of all of that incredible information that we have inside. So, to begin, intuition. What is this thing? I like to think of it as a kind of more modern way of talking about being psychic is one end of the spectrum, and on the other it's simply just talking about an extension of the senses that we have already got and take for granted. So I believe everybody is intuitive to some degree or another, and I believe that everybody can grow their intuition or their psychic abilities or their paranormal sensitivities, whatever you want to call it. Definitely not paranormal, but let's not get too caught up in the words. I want to give you my personal understanding of it first, my personal definition, which is, it's all on the tin really. Intuition. It's the information that we have access to from within, that we can sink into by really connecting with ourselves and having that deep relationship with self, with our higher self, which I think is one of the most important parts of growing your intuition really, is nurturing that relationship with your higher self, which we will get to. The other thing I want to talk to you about is just, I want you to think about senses, all of our senses. So smell, our sight, our ears and ability to hear, and our touch. Everything that we are interpreting is vibrational frequency, information. It's data that is arriving at us in some form, all vibrationally, and our different senses are just interpreting that same information in different ways. So, for example, noise, music, let's say, we can hear it. That's the first thing we'll think of, is the little hairs in our ears that are so sensitive and pick up those very subtle frequencies and some of the more obvious ones. And through that, it takes the information to our brain and collapses it into an intelligible form, some kind of well-informed relationship with the outside world, with the information that's coming in, and we have our own ways of decoding that is meaningful for us. So when something isn't meaningful for us on a personal level, our brain, does something called delete and distort, which is what we call it in the NLP model of understanding the mind, Neuro-linguistic programming, which is where we talk about the mind and our personal map of reality, if you will, which we have inside our minds. Whatever is relevant to us, whatever we choose to be important to us, which is something else we're going to be talking about, we will notice, and everything that is coming at us will be interpreted in those terms. And if there's anything that we think is irrelevant, or sometimes even if it is unconsciously a threat to our sense of self or our certainties or the things that matter to us, we will delete and distort the fuck out of them. So when we delete something, boom, as if it never happened, don't even notice it. Literally, we could, like some people, for example, actually this does happen, when you have a constant noise in the background, they'll get to a point where your brain has understood that it's there so completely all the time that it will lessen its effect so that you can still hear all the different things that are going on, all the other nuances that are more important to pay attention to, because it has recognised that the other one is just a flat lay constant and therefore might as well be relegated to background and not brought forward so that it distracts you, is faded out, okay? That is about 95% of the information that's coming at us on a daily basis is deleted or faded to the background to the point where we don't notice it, or distorted. So the distortion comes in where information comes in and it doesn't align with our values or what we understand or what we believe is true about the world, so we will distort it to fit with our belief system. That's a slightly different ballpark, sort of. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because all of us have all the same information coming at us in a way. And it's really just down to how we fine-tuned our senses and what matters to us between our eyes and ears, rather, our brain, that deciphers, what meaning we pick up on and how much access we have to the truth. How do we define the truth? What matters to us, right? So the first thing I want to look at today is values, your higher self, and just getting used to really paying attention to our senses. So I'm going to just stick to the senses for a minute and then we'll cover the other two. So with our senses, like I was saying, with you being able to hear, interpret vibrational frequency through your ears, through noise, so that our brain hears the sound, right? If we didn't have that, we wouldn't hear it. We call it hearing, but we would feel it in the same way as we do. We feel heat. We feel the vibration of music if it's loud enough in our bodies. The same thing that we could, touch is another way of interpreting the interaction I'm having, which is vibrational. This piece of paper has a vibrational signature. That is what it is. And by it being what it is and my fingers being what my fingers are, our relationship is created upon contact. And I am making sense of what I'm touching. If it has sense in my world, if you see what I mean. So to try not to get too convoluted, basically I want you to just remember that when one of us loses, say, our capacity to hear, then we will strongly develop our other senses beyond what they were before, because we will be leaning on them so much harder that we'll be creating much stronger neural pathways in our minds to these particular senses in a way that we hadn't before, because we were spreading our senses across all five. And as soon as you lose one that's so important, such as sight or hearing, or even taste or smell, we will suddenly take in our environment with so much more emphasis and attention through the other senses. And that will in turn grow the muscles. It will grow. You'll start to feel more. You'll literally develop more of those, what do you call them? More senses, essentially. More of our senses will become extra sensitive and therefore be able to, relay extra. Sorry guys, it only happens. It's Halloween. I just need to text my husband to reset the watch-a-doo-dah. You know what I mean? Okay, we can keep this rolling. This is great. I don't like to edit my films because I just can't be asked, right? So this is all part of it. Please reset the lights. Yeah, so basically Ben, who is massively afraid of electrics, has installed this really annoying fuse disconnector thing so that it's really sensitive to when there's been, too much light or something. And luckily we have our candles. Should we bring them aboard? Let's bring them aboard, gang. Whilst he just gets to that, unbelievable, I was just getting my full swing there. See, if I wanted to not be so willful, fabulous, I would say it's a sign for me to just shut up and go to bed. But I am going to persist. Anyhow, it's a bit nice, isn't it? Honestly. Okay. Where were we? So senses. Basically, I would really like you to pay more attention to your senses. So, because intuition, and when you talk about people's sixth sense, or being psychic or clairvoyant or, mediumship and channeling, all these things, people talk about it in terms of being able to hear, see more, they get images, some people just get downloads, total knowing, they don't know how to explain it other than just knowing. Some people smell the thing or hear voices or can taste things related to what they're being shown. So that subtler sense is all about being able to drink in your environment with more, with a subtler sense, basically. It's about kind of going beyond the tip of your finger to the energetic aspect of your finger, being able to feel through your energetic field, to be able to absorb information from other people's energetic field. It's just getting subtler and subtler and subtler. So in the same way as the butterfly can see the same, what we see as what we can smell from a flower, which can be calibrated to an exact Hertz frequency. What the smell that we get from a rose, a butterfly's senses are designed to be able to see that smell. They are so much more sensitive, but not only they have different senses completely, so that the way that they can absorb the information from the flower, which of course is so meaningful to them because it's their life source, food, means that they can see the freaking smell. Oh, so it's really cool. I love that whole dimension of how differently we all interpret the world, and how, you know, how human, how anthropocentric we can be in our interpretation of the world, when actually we are just interpreting it as our little newty, humanoidy senses allow us to. And the way that we get beyond that really is just leaning into our environment and learning to really engage with it in a much more sensitive and subtler way. So the first task is, I would like you to set some time aside to sit out in nature, especially would be great. I'm talking your garden, your front porch even is fine. And just sit there and listen. Like right now, I don't know if you can hear that, but the wind is rustling. It's so windy outside. And just being able to hear the movement of the leaves helps me also be able to feel the movement of that wind kind of rustling through everything. And I can feel in my body that energetic lifting and clearing of just being in the presence of that motion, right? So it's no longer like a two-dimensional just noise. It's a whole movement. And as you start to relate to the sense, you know, the sensory data you're receiving as not just a sound, a note, a word, a thought, an image, but as a whole being almost, like, which has so many different ways of being interpreted and so much information within it, the more you can sort of let your body be a sensor, you know, an instrument of detection, then the more you can kind of fine tune into more specific things, other people's frequencies, their intentions, their health picture, or whatever else. But what I think is so important for intuition, and in this particular 5 days together, is to gain that relationship for the sake of our own life, our own improvement, especially because any information we garner from other people's energy is best interpreted when we are already aligned with our own. There's nothing worse than being a haphazard psychic and not knowing what to do with your gift, how it works, or how to protect yourself from other people's energy. That used to be me, and I was an absolute fucking mess, okay? I had chronic fatigue. I was dealing with like overwhelming impressions from people just walking down the street. Like I didn't know what was wrong with me, and frankly, the doctor didn't know what the hell to do with me. But I learned in time how to shut down, how to open up more at will, and I learned more about my senses and how I'm triggered and how to protect what I'm most sensitive to. So getting outside and really sensing your environment, putting your hands into the grass. What does it feel like? What's the sensation there on your fingertips? Can you smell the grass? Can you hear it when it moves? What sound would it make if it did make a sound? If it had something to say, what would it be saying to you right now? How does the grass feel? Merging your own sense of self with what you're perceiving is the best way to really amplify your own sensitivity, because we are all one. Essentially, we are one giant sleep of energy, all vibrating at different frequencies. And the less we see ourselves as this separate organism that interacts with the world in this really like brittle physical way, and the more we see that those edges are really just kind of illusory, and where I begin and you end is actually way more intersupial. It's not a word, I'm thinking like soupy. But you know, it's way more like fluid, basically. And so when you touch like a candle, you know, everything to do with magic and witchcraft is all about that interpretation. That relationship with other is just merging, knowing that my will can be imprinted onto something, that I can merge my sense of self with the whole, the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? So getting out into nature, smelling, sensing, using your ears, everything, just to become so incredibly aware of your environment that you lose your sense of personal self. That's key. The other thing we do in NLP to help do this is, traditionally, most people who are, let's say, neuronormative, is it? Neurotypical, aka not me, have a much narrower scope of attention. So they will notice what's kind of here in front of them and what is the most important, the brightest thing they're supposed to be paying attention to. One of the things they taught us when I was learning how to, when I was training in neurolinguistic programming, is to take that field, that scope, and broaden it so that it's all the way to the back of your head. So the point being is that you're noticing everything in your periphery, above, below, and you start to get a sense of being really 360 in your space, where usually our brain is designed to sort of narrow down on what we're focusing on and who we're with and what the most important thing in our world is in that moment. The idea is to get really, really open and notice everything around you. Now, I have ADHD, so when I was first taught this, I was like, this kind of seems real normal to me. Like, I'm walking around constantly 360. Like, I notice everything. That's why I'm so distractible. What it really means is I'm very attentive to everything. I'm hyper aware. So for me, I was like, oh, doesn't feel that different, but it was a really interesting moment to connect some dots within myself. So I would advise giving that a go. Notice when you're sat down in front of something what you notice. Maybe it goes as far as here. Maybe you're noticing the brightest thing in your environment. And then just challenge yourself to notice the furthest thing in your left periphery and the furthest thing in your right periphery and the thing above, and start to notice the air around you, and if you can sense the kind of confines of the wall and how that feels different to if you took the walls away and could feel the wind coming in all around you. And just get really, really aware of your 360 perception. What's behind you? Can you feel it with your energy? Can you feel that wall? Can you feel the warmth and that kind of pressure from that solidity behind you? Can you feel the softness of the mattress there? Your voice bouncing off a material in a different way. This is all about challenging your natural perceptions, including how bats, for example, blind as anything, can go whizzing around at night because of their high-pitched frequencies they emit, and they go bouncing off buildings and things, and they get that feedback straight away that tells them, and they build an inner picture of the world through sound. It's freaking fascinating. Anyway, I've gone on long enough, so I'll just quickly conclude with the higher self and the values. So basically, your higher self you can see as the divine version of you, the version of you that is plugged into all that is, the soup of eternity, everything, the sum total of everything. But it's your personal signature version of God, if you will. It's like the unique ray of sunshine that you are, you know, your soul is, in comparison to the actual source, the whole sun. So nurturing this relationship with yourself is so important because your higher self knows what matters to you most and why you're here on planet Earth, what your soul is wanting to experience whilst you're here. So being able to connect with your higher self before you go ahead and dive into something that matters to you, whether it's job hunting or looking for a house or finding a mate, if you can just take a moment to just take a few deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth slowly, and just bring that energy right down, slowing your nervous system down so you can be super present, taking a few more deep breaths, and then just asking yourself, literally, I now ask to connect with my higher self and for my higher self to guide me in XYZ. Maybe it's in the reading you're about to do, maybe it's in a decision-making process. And I want you to do that, and then to guide me in the journaling process of getting in touch with my values. So the reason I want you to get in touch with your values is because when you know what you want, or you're connected with your true north, then you can better decipher whether something is for you, boom, or whether something is not for you. When you're aligned with what really matters to you, anything that is off that course, off that track, that's going to distract or take you away from that is going to feel discordant. It's going to feel like da 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 versus get my drift. So I really want you to journal around your values. You've probably done this a million times. Do it again. I guarantee it's never a waste of time. Get clear on what matters to you now, today. What matters to you over the next 5 years? Why do you want a particular thing? If you want a beautiful, gorgeous house with space for, I don't know, a studio and a craft room, why? Oh, because creativity matters to me so much. I want my children to have access to this. I want them to have a beautiful space for tree houses. I want them to be able to invite their friends over. Why? Because childhood matters to me. Having a beautiful time together matters to me. You know, the more questions you ask about what you want, the deeper you're going to get into what matters most to you. And as you journal, you'll be connecting the dots more and more in a way that allows you to move forward, knowing what is for you and what isn't for you. And you're connecting with your higher self, so that as you go out into the world and you connect with all those opportunities, you'll know when something's coming your way and it's just like not helpful at the moment and you need to put a boundary up and say thank you but no thank you, or whether there's an opportunity and you're like, yes, that, and it might not even be obvious, but your higher self knows that in that opportunity lies the key to another opportunity that is connected to D. Excuse me. So please make time to do that. And I forgot what my last one was. I think that was it, actually. So yeah, I think just getting to know your higher self as well. Sometimes what's nice with this journaling process is even just saying, please guide me in this free-flowing journaling. So just taking time to just write whatever comes to mind, just let it flow, let it all come out, and you'll be really interesting to see what's happening basically for you. Sorry, my husband, it might be my son, saying hello. Okay, I'm coming. My son's awake, so I better go. Yeah, so just get outside, get into your senses, taste, touch, feel, smell. You can even make yourself a nice hot cup if it's raining outside. You know, you sit and listen to it somewhere dry, make yourself something hot to smell, drink, taste. Get in touch with your senses. And, excuse me, we'll be going into more depth on techniques and tips and all sorts of juicy stuff tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to going further with you soon. Off to go and whap a boob out in my baby's mouth. Good night.